I'll just check online in 1 second. There wasn't a few minutes ago.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Mark.
You're very welcome.
All right, well, we're gonna get going then.
This will just take a second. Yeah, if you want to move on to the next.
Yeah, if we can come back to it. Tonight, we have a recognition, Hewitt Career Technical Education National Honor Society. Mary, do you want to give a quick
Yeah,
overview?
I'm going to ask Mr. Connell to help me with that.
Sure.
Mr. Connell is our Director of School Counseling.
Yeah.
Yep, come on up. Perfect. And
You gotta
we'll
come up
see him
here on
beside you
stage.
so that-
Stage, right there. Yeah, I'm not an
Okay,
actor.
wanna share this accomplishment?
Yeah, so I'm really grateful that not everyone can make it tonight. We had 5 total inductees into the Hewitt National Honor Society this year. 2 were able to make it tonight, which we really appreciate. So this is Jack Lorette, who's a graduating senior, did the digital media arts program for a couple of years over at Laconia. Did really well over there, so congratulations on your induction.
Let's have you come up, Jack.
Thank you.
And then we also have Gabby Clark, who's another graduating senior, did the health science program over there for a couple of years, and we wanted to recognize her as well for her accomplishments.
Well, I take my test week on the medical system like 10 days, so
Are you nervous?
a little bit, but thank you.
Our other seniors, they had other commitments tonight, but I do want to mention them. We had Lily Nichols, who's in the health science program, Cohen Staples, who did automotive, and Mackenzie Rogers, who was also in health science. So
We do have certificates for that, for folks watching. Okay.
I can make sure they get these at school.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah.
Congratulations.
guys.
Well done. Well done.
Mr. Terry, are you prepared to give us an update on all student activities in the Interlake School District?
Yes. So this past weekend, the Laker Bots. Give it a sec. This past weekend, the Laker Bots went to the New Hampshire Veterans Home to give a presentation, talk with all the veterans. We demonstrated the robot, and we actually ended up racing one of the World War II veterans in a wheelchair with our robot.
I bet they love that.
So awesome. Was it a push wheelchair or was it a electric?
Yeah, I don't electric wheelchair.
Who won?
He won. It was a pretty close race, though.
Well played.
On Memorial Day, the marching band will be performing in the Meredith and Center Harbor parades.
And thank you for that as a Center Harbor resident. Thank you.
AP testing has been underway. Most of them have happened, but there's still a couple more to go. And New Hampshire SAS testing happened in the 8th grade as well as for the juniors. Prom will be Saturday at Castle in the Clouds. Senior night will be on June 6th, and the seniors class trip will be on June 10th. Then athletics recognition night is on June 9th, and graduation is set for June 14th at 10 a.m., rain or shine. Spring Fling will be happening on May 23rd. This is the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, and this will be just kind of a time for students to spend a little time outside right before the long weekend. And this is hosted by High School Student Council. And then all the spring sports, so baseball, softball, lacrosse, track, and tennis, all have like home games or meets this week. The website will have all the dates and times for those games.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Gil. All right. Next up, we have the minutes from April 8th, 2025. And we have the minutes from April 25th, 2025. I'll take one motion for
A
a motion.
motion to approve the minutes of the 23rd and 25th,
The 8th and the 25th.
8th and the 25th.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
Any discussion, edits, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
I'm gonna abstain.
Abstain.
I wasn't here on the 25th, but I was.
Well, we don't have a quorum then.
All right, so now.
So we'll bring them.
Then you'll. You'll say
I
yes.
believe it's fine. Do you need a quorum vote?
Per minute, you need a quorum
Okay,
to approve them officially. We can just kick the can down the
yeah,
road. with
okay,
the
so
minutes.
bring the 25th,
The 8th and the
the
25th.
8th and 25th.
You said
Okay.
both, right?
I wasn't here either. I was just here for the non-public on the 8th.
Right.
Okay, so we'll bring back in June.
And they, and Ed, you wanted to do that?
I was not, I was here for the 8th, I was not.
I was not here.
For either one.
No, I was here for the 8th.
You were here, so we can vote on the 8th.
Yes.
Okay,
Great.
so can you amend your motion for the?
Yes, I will amend my motion. to
Okay.
approve the-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So let's do the 25th again on the. In June.
Excellent.
Been a year of kicking the can down the road with recognitions and minutes. Old business, strategic planning update. Mrs. Moriarty.
Yes, I wanted to share with you that you have at your tables the postcard that went out to postgraduates that we had addresses for. I think we were able to go back to 2017. We've also been trying to use social media to get 2015 and up to complete a survey. As of today, I think we have 15 people that have completed. I've set kind of a goal of 50, and we're trying to ask staff to help us. We do have a reception on the 22nd. So we've invited them to come back, have a chance maybe to visit, and to also share some feedback with us. And I did put a copy of the survey for you to review. I do appreciate the feedback that was given. I think we were able to make it a better survey. I shared it originally with the board, and I think we were able to streamline some of it to make it a better process. Also in your packets, you have, starting on page 33, and it goes all the way to page, it's kind of long, hold on, 33 through page 79. This is a working draft that New Hampshire Listens has put together from the listening sessions that were completed in April. So there were 3. And again, I want to really thank the administrative team who was essential in providing facilitation of that event, and to the school board members for attending and participating, and to certainly the community and students who were part of that. So a next step, we will be looking to, we have some people who've said that they will serve on the strategic planning committee. And we do have Siobhan, Nancy, and Ed representing the school board. And so we'll have some time to take a look at this and see, what we can garner from it. I think the goal will be to boil this down some more. There's a lot here. And so we need to, continue to try to get the salient points from it and figure out our next steps. The feedback from the postgraduates, that survey is open to the end of this month. We are also, Dr. Downing is working next week to, I think it was Caleb and Sumner who had suggested that we do this with the student body, the current student body. And do you remember that? I think that was at Center Harbor. It was pretty warm. So we are doing that next Tuesday with the current 7th and 12th graders as well to get their feedback. And so the hope is that by the end of June, the strategic planning committee can have maybe a good work session to try to sift through all of the feedback and figure out our next steps. So a lot there, some light reading for you. We will also be posting it on our website so that people can access it. And we've collected email addresses from people who were in attendance. So we'll push out that this is the working draft. And again, it's a working draft. It's because there's more feedback to come in that then will be synthesized. So, but we will make sure that it's, we communicate those updates to folks.
Thank you, Mary. What's our, what is our plan? I don't want to say deadline, but our plan.
So December 2025, the goal is that the board is voting on a strategic plan.
So what do we think is the timeline for finalizing this?
So the end of June will be to get all the feedback organized. The goal is this summer to work on this committee writing. The goal then is in the fall to kind of do a similar process of going out to people and saying, here's the draft plan. What feedback would you give on the draft plan? And then any revisions from that, and then have it for December 2025 for the board.
Thank you.
So it will be a busy summer.
Excellent. Lots of reading to do on the beach.
There you go.
Great, thank you. The Interlakes Middle High School, New England Association of School and Colleges Visitation. Mrs. Moriarty
So-
and Dr. D.
I want to start by commending the entire middle high school for an incredible process. And, that certainly had many hands at work to do that, but certainly the leadership of Dr. Downing, Erica Papalardo certainly helped to frame that process. And so I would turn it over to Dr. Downing to share some highlights from the visiting team.
Yes, so we had our visit in April. We don't have anything in writing yet from the committee, but they did provide us a little bit of a debriefing when they left and shared with us some accommodations based on their visit, and then a couple touch points for some things that they feel we can focus on in the future. So I'll just share. I will say that the visit was incredibly positive, and the list of accommodations is pretty extensive. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the ones that I think are the ones that we should probably be the proudest of. One was of the accommodations from the group was that we provide a socially, emotionally, physically safe school for our students and staff. And just so you're aware, part of that process is they talk to everybody for all the way when they came for their original visit. Prior to, they had a lot of student and staff contact time. This time as well, they had a lot of student and staff contact time, so they get a relatively well-rounded view of what's happening. To Mr. Swanker and his crew, this gets mentioned every time, the cleanliness and well-maintained building and grounds and the shape that it was in when they came. They mentioned how incredibly shiny our floors were and how clean the bathrooms were and how good things smelled. And they're obviously all educators, so they understand what that looks like day to day. They gave us a commendation for taking the time to continue the strategic planning work and to also integrate into that receiving feedback from the community about our portrait of a graduate work. They shared that they believe that there is an extensive use of technology, both by students in classrooms, and that we provide a lot of opportunities for our students, which is due to the incredible community support that we have. And then I think probably one of the ones to be the most proud of is that they commended the trust that they feel from who they spoke with is established between the community, the school board, our superintendent, the school admin, and our teachers to create a very caring and safe, supportive learning environment for our students. So I think a lot of things to be very proud of. And some of the pieces that they highlighted for work in the future is just to complete our process for Portrait of a Graduate. We made a lot of progress very quickly on their areas of recommendation. So they had said, like, you really have completed most of what we asked you to complete. So just continue the hard work that you have done. So nothing, that they felt was, anything burning, just to continue to work on our curriculum, continue school schedule exploration on our PAC, and looking at how we can maximize our shared staff and looking at our schedule and how that can best serve our learners in the future. So that's how the visit went. It was very positive, and we should probably have a finalized copy of our decennial report. I'm hoping midsummer. It takes a couple months for them to get it to the editors and back to us. So
Congratulations.
I would just add to that, Duncan, Mark, and I had a chance to sit with one of their groups because we were partnered with Mary at I forget what the rubric was, the big picture
Yes.
rubric, whatever, policy, whatnot. But, and then I went to the debrief of all the staff. There must have been, what, Amanda, there must have been 60 people there, staff people, 50, 60 something.
easily, I believe we had a good chunk of our paraeducators there.
And
so yes.
as Amanda said, they highlighted that they were very impressed. And the team leader went out of his way to tell me how impressed, and he did watch, because I asked him to, the volleyball captain's video. And he thought that was the cat's pajamas. At the end, the words I heard, remembered, was he was also, they were very impressed with how we were all pulling in the same direction. And it was shown in the results with our kids. Is that accurate?
Incredibly, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, it was, I thought, great, because anytime you can get a third party coming in to give you an honest, frank overview, I think that's pretty valuable information.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wax.
I ran.
Master Professional Development Plan.
So page 80 of your packet has the section of the collective bargaining agreement between the school board and the ILEA, and it requires that the professional development master plan be approved by the school board. That is not a state requirement, but it is part of the collective bargaining agreement. So we have a incredible professional development committee, and we have some representatives here tonight, and they are led by Mrs. Papalardo. So I'm going to turn it over to her. Our goal this night is just to introduce it with the hope that you will consider approving it in June.
Perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Moriarty. So I'm really excited to highlight the work of 6 phenomenal educators who I have the privilege of working with on this committee. We have 3 of them here this evening. We have Caitlin Du Bois, who's I really need to highlight especially. Typically, each school has one staff member who is a paraeducator who supports all the paraeducators in the school on this committee. And we had 2 unfilled positions this year, and I really want to highlight Caitlin's service to the district in that she took over all 3 schools this year in absence of anybody interested in taking the role. So big congratulations to Caitlin's service this year. We have at the middle high school, Mel LaPan and Meg Bedford also serving, representing the teachers in that school. And Caitlin obviously taking the paras. And then over at Sandwich, we have Sally Johnston, who represents all of our teachers, and Caitlin, who serves the paras. And then at ILES, we have Andrea Calder and Ashley Shuffleton, who represent our teachers, and Caitlin with the paras. So that's our committee. The committee members have 4 core responsibilities, and one of them is to provide building level support. So if staff have questions about how they access the professional funds that are afforded by the school board and the school district, they're in the buildings, in the trenches to help answer the questions, fill out the forms. They're not things that people do every day, so questions come up, and there's a software that is a little complicated to use, so they do a great job managing that. They also approve all of the clock hours that our educators accumulate over time. We have a certain number of requirements that must be met as articulated by the requirements in our PD master plan, which are ultimately overseen by the Department of Education. And so they also approve all of those clock hours for every educator in our school district, which essentially is saying, I assert that this is aligned with your role, your responsibility, the endorsements that you hold as an educator, and that they're valid and trustworthy clock hours that show as evidence of continuing professional learning. And then really their last responsibility, which we have been knee deep in this year, is the professional development master plan, which you have before you this evening. We have been working on this for over a year. And it's been a pretty complex process. We also had like an extension of our due date due to COVID, essentially, has kind of set our timeline back a little bit. So over a year, we've been focusing on this. Essentially, the purpose of this plan is to articulate the ways in which the Interlake School District assures that we are providing high quality, data-driven professional learning experiences for our educators. There are a lot of things to highlight in this plan. You'll see them when you look through it yourselves, but if I were to name maybe the top 2 or 3, I might call attention to the fact that we have 19 different kinds of strategies that our paraeducators and our teachers and administrators all have access to. So those are things like we value learning can occur for adult learners ourselves through something very traditional like taking a course from a university, all the way to immersing ourselves in our content, all the way to presenting doing some work for ourselves as professional presenters and contributing to our fields. So we have 19 of those different strategies that we acknowledge and accept in our professional development master plan. And ultimately, all of those clock hours end up being really important currency, because in a 3-year cycle, all of our educators have to renew their teaching credentials with the Department of Education. So that approval and this plan that the Department of Education approves essentially asserts that the superintendent has the authority to approve all of those renewals on a 3-year cycle. And so our plan is complete. It was just submitted to the Department of Education on April 25th. And we'll get some feedback from them if there's anything that they feel needs tightening up, which we'll attend to promptly. And really our last effort of the year has been to develop a survey, which we just finished. Was that yesterday, thank you. We finished it yesterday. And so we're really excited about all of our accomplishments this year. And we thank you for your support in this very important position. And if there are questions, we welcome them.
So our goal is that the board take action in June on the plan. And again, we had a deadline with the Department of Ed, which we met. But certainly if the board has things you want us to explore changing, we can always amend whatever is at the Department of Ed. But we're trying to meet the obligation of the contract.
How often do you have to rework this master plan?
Oh, great question. The master plan has to be reviewed every 5 years.
Not necessarily changed or updated, but reviewed and recertified.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the hope is that in between that 5-year timeline, that the committee creates a survey and sends that out to stakeholders to ensure that we're getting some stakeholder feedback in that process.
Thank you.
And the stakeholders in this case are the certified staff members.
Correct.
So this is the plan that was
Yes.
submitted to the state.
Yes.
So why can't we vote on it
You
tonight?
certainly can. I just always like to give the board
Time?
time.
Chance to
I don't
absorb.
know. I defer to the board.
I think it's important that we review this because I think it becomes a line of effort within the strategy.
Sure. All right, we'll take it up in June. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Papalardo.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Suicide prevention plan. Mrs. Moriarty and Mr. Connell.
So actually, Mr. Connell has a copy to distribute to you.
Yes, so if you do have a copy.
I removed them.
You removed
yeah.
it, okay.
We
I was gonna say.
photocopied an older version, so
Yeah.
we want to
You
make sure
want
you
to
have
just
that.
take one and pass it around. My apologies about that. Yeah, so every year this is a policy that's reviewed annually, and I will say there's been a lot of refinement and work that goes into looking at the tools and protocol that's in here. There's really nothing that's changed from last year's plan that was approved by the board. I will say something that we'll be looking forward to looking at is all of our high schoolers took the YRBS, or the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, back in early April. And we're always looking at the overall health and wellness of our students. One of the categories in that survey does talk about suicidal ideation and those items as well. So be interested to see what the results come back as. We usually get that probably back in the fall. We'll probably get those results. But yeah, no major changes to the plan itself for this upcoming year.
2 years ago, we did change, and I'm just curious if that is like neutral, if it's been beneficial, if it's been a burden to the teachers in the shift of how we approach 10 under.
No, I think that's actually been a nice shift. I mean, I don't think it's been a burden at all. I think it's actually been helpful to have some differentiation in how we interact with younger students and older. So it's a great question. I think the shift has worked out well.
And I believe last year, some of the feedback was also highlighting, the pages are not numbered, but if you
Oh, yeah.
go in a few pages, you get to a flow chart. And I think it was highlighting the parent contact pieces. So, that is certainly a benefit. So.
Yeah, I I do like that we highlighted that in yellow because it pops out. So that's been nice and helps the educators who are dealing with this chart to see it more clearly.
So again, similar to the master PD plan, we are kind of sharing it tonight with the goal that the board would approve it in June.
Very good. We shall do that then. All right, next up, we have the data security and governance policy.
So this is not in your packet because it's a security matter, but it has been shared just for the public with the board, for the board's review, and we'll ask the board to consider that in June as well.
Yep. Discuss that in non-public. Thank you. And then we have Officer NATO here tonight. Not to take Caleb into custody. I just want to be clear. I know that. Oh, right, I would have. Just kidding, Caleb.
So we like to
Yeah.
call Officer Meadow Officer Rob. And we are here tonight, and Mr. Bichet as well, to talk about a program for a comfort dog with the school resource officer at ILES. So I think that's most important, that we're looking at this more as a school program, not as an individual component. And we did share some materials with you, but I think Officer Rob can probably talk a little bit about what it would look like.
Yep. So I think you guys all got the letter that I sent to the superintendent. So I'll just kind of highlight some of that. First off, thank you for letting me have the opportunity to present this to you. Obviously, having a dog in the school, I think would be a huge asset to our students, staff, and our community. I'll just highlight a couple things that I think that are very important that we could do with it. Obviously, the emotional and mental health support is, I think, a no-brainer. Just the fact of petting a dog sometimes can ease everybody's stress and make the kids feel better. Crisis intervention and de-escalation. As students are stressed out, again, that having that dog there as not necessarily a reward, but as something there as an impartial person that's not going to judge them, to calm them back down, to get to a point where they can, get back into an active member of the classroom. One of the big things for me as an SRO, I enjoy interacting with the kids. My main goal at the elementary school is just to build a positive relationship with the kids. Some of the kids are scared of me. I don't know why, because I'm not scary, but just that's how they are. So having a little furry friend there with me that could kind of ease that tension for them to come into my office, either talk about some crisis that they have, some trauma that they experienced, or just a friendly conversation that I could have with them that could break the ice to bring them into my office. Studies have also shown that it improves attendance and academic performance. Some have done a bunch of research on it. Just having the dog in the hallway before they go into SAS testing or one of their testing, that they can pet the dog just to relax them and be in a clearer mind when they get there and take some of their stress away. So those are some of the quick things. Obviously, there's way more to it. I don't want to take up too much of your time. There's also some concerns, right? So allergies and kids that are scared of dogs. The way that they present in other schools, it's very, very structured. So we do some kind of planning ahead to find out kids that have allergies, to make sure they don't have contact with the dog. And kids that are scared of dogs, make sure they don't have to interact if they don't want to. So a little bit of planning on my part before and the school's part to make sure that those kids feel comfortable in the school, where we don't want to cause any disruption to them. Disruption in the classroom, it's very structured in how the interaction with the dog would be. So again, it wouldn't be just walking around the school. It'd be structured times to meet with kids in the classroom if they wanted to, or for them to come to my office and meet with the dog. And another concern, funding. So there'd be no cost to the school. The dog itself would be, I've talked to a company called Hero Pups. They've done about 250 service dogs to veterans and first responders. I've been in contact with them. So the dog would be about $7,000 that I could privately fund through cooperation with some other businesses in town and stuff. So it'd be no cost to the school for anything. The maintenance of the dog, my wife and I are going to take care of it. So no cost at all to the school. The only thing that we'd have to do is the liability insurance, which I believe that you've already looked into.
We have, and the dog would be actually an employee of the school district and covered by our liability.
What grade? What grade?
It'd be first grade or kindergarten, really. They got to start at the bottom. And then The other thing is just training, right? The dog comes completely trained. So if this gets passed, once I call Hero Pups and say, okay, we're good to go, it's about a 6 to 8 month process for them to train the dog. So the dog would be introduced part-time sometime before that. And about the year 8, when they're about a year old, is when they get released full-time to me as the handler to have in the school full-time. So they come completely fully trained. They do all kinds of stuff. Again, it's like a 6 to 8 month process of training that they go through with the dogs. They select the dog that's best for the environment. So once you talk to them, you say, hey, this is what we're going to do with it. As they're interacting with the dogs, like, you know what, this one has a good temperament to be in a school setting. So that's the dog that they would assign. So I don't get to go down and be like, that was really cute. I want that one.
So this wouldn't happen next year, it would happen the year after because of the timing.
It potentially could happen next year, depending on whenever the answer is. That starts the timeline. So when I spoke to them, if I were to call them tomorrow, they said at the beginning of, again, we're just talking about tonight, but if I called them tomorrow, they said at the beginning of the school year should be to introduce the dog to the school. So it'd be with me part-time while it's still finishing its training. And then December, January would be full-time in the school. So it just depends whenever the answer is when the timeline starts. So it wouldn't be at the beginning of the school year full-time, but it could still be introduced to the school on a part-time basis in and out.
Would this only be at ILES?
That's open. Obviously, I'm assigned to ILES, so that's where I think it would spend most of the time. If something happened that it needed to be someplace else, it could very easily go to wherever it needs to be. I would think that's.
I think, I think if like maybe visiting, sandwich, right?
Yep.
Yes, those kind of things I think could easily be arranged.
Yeah.
And I think
I have a
it
car, I'll
was,
travel anywhere.
if there was an emergency, there'd be a plan in place to secure the dog so that the dog's not interfering with your ability to,
Correct. Yep.
to operate.
Yep.
One of the things that we talked about, again, we're kind of introducing tonight with the hope that the board would consider in June, making a decision that between now and then, if you're, amenable to furthering this conversation, we don't want, if you're like, absolutely not, we don't want to, to create, people wanting a dog and not having the potential of that, but having Officer Rob maybe offer to some families that two families at ILES, if they wanted to come and have a chat and have a cup of coffee and chat with him, just, again, there are people with different feelings about dogs. So it would be a chance to get some, feedback from families directly about how they would feel about this so that we could bring that back to June.
Okay, so, go ahead.
I'm saying, okay.
All right. Any other thoughts or questions? So we'll plan to vote on this in June, which maybe in spring of 26, one could show up if it was a positive vote.
Yep.
I want to say my school had a comfort dog and it was a high school.
Yep.
And it was wonderful. Before exams, the kids would all be out there petting the dog. So it can be, there's research that backs this up, but it can be really helpful.
And there's a lot with like literacy, so younger kids reading to dogs, PT and OT, using a fun thing for PT and OT, playing catch or doing something with the dog. There's a ton of, again, I just highlighted some quick things, but there's a ton of things that the dog would be used for.
And Rob, just to put it in context, that says an awful lot for Nancy to say something like that because she is not a dog person.
Not a dog person. And I also have to tell a story, and this was not the comfort dog, but I was in like my first year teaching in a big public high school, and so I had like 30 kids in the room, and it was exam time, and it was in June, and it was like 95 degrees and humid, and then a dog that belonged to the custodian, this was years ago when that could happen, right, walked into the room right in the middle floor. And I was the only adult in the room, right, and I couldn't leave the room because the kids were taking exam. They were all lying around the edge of the room, and I was like, And it was awful. Finally, the custodian came and found the dog, but and apologized and cleaned everything. But anyway.
So if this goes
dog
through
will
well,
not
please
be
don't let that
wandering
happen.
I won't let
around.
that
This will be a highly trained dog.
Highly trained and taken out frequently.
You're
And
gonna
cleaned
take
up
after
after.
walks regularly.
I did a visit to Pembroke Academy recently I was the chair of the committee there for their visit, and they've had a comfort dog there for years at the high school. He has beds all over the building. He is a full-fledged member of their school community. And again, well-trained, well-handled, process in place. And it's a really inviting thing to see as somebody outside coming in. And particularly for their life skills program, it's valuable. So just seeing it there.
All right.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Rob, thank you
Thank
very
you all.
much. And thanks for doing such a great job at the elementary school.
Yeah.
All right, Lakes Region High School Consortium Agreement.
So it seems to be the month of the preview. So my hope is the board will consider joining this consortium in June. This is an opportunity similar to the arrangement we have with Molten Borough, where we can share classes, but in a much wider scope. That this would open up Lakes Region classes to students at our high school level, as well as opening our high school to other students. The idea is, we are all trying to continue to offer strong programming with declining enrollment, and also with increasingly more challenges about being able to hire staff. And so this opportunity to join the consortium would allow our students to participate potentially in classes being offered elsewhere. There are barriers. This is a starting point. The transportation is provided by the individual student or by their family. So that is, obviously a barrier that's not available to every student. There are, you're talking, there's 13 high schools listed here with 13 different schedules. So that, presents another barrier. But it may be something, that works for a student. And, that is, if you have a class that you're running with 10 students, there's some space. And so being able to offer that and take advantage is really what this is about. Special education needs, if there are special education needs, those would be addressed by the home district. So, that could be either, we're helping to meet that need, but then we are charging the other district, or if it's in our case, a student is attending a course in another district and has special education needs, we might get a bill for that, or we might have to figure out how we provide that level of service.
I saw that it's like a 10-year
Yes.
agreement.
Yes.
Is there a plan for like checking in with each other? Is that done on an individual basis between schools?
So there would be advisory group that would be made up of all the superintendents of the participating districts. And, certainly guidance would play a major role too in helping us to, know how it's working individually for our students and for other students. So it's a starting point to trying to look at things a little differently and to provide some increased opportunities. I could see this, maybe someday this grows into, more distance learning opportunities that, we certainly during COVID had the chance to all experience some of that. Years ago, there was distance learning. But I think, this might be the way to, again, start seeing where kids have interests and where it might be worth investing, getting some of those distance learning pieces really in a good spot.
Because you could attend a class remotely.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you could be in,
Yes.
Meredith
Yeah.
and attend a class in
Yeah.
wherever. And
Yeah.
I would guess that it might encourage schools to coordinate schedules better too.
Yeah, and I think we
Yeah.
have some goals of looking at our own schedule and looking at, are there other ways we might better align with some neighbors. So, but it really is a starting point.
It seems like with the RAP, we are at a good starting point because so many already have to be in compliance, as we shared with you at So it's not like we're.
And we're just
not-
So that helps. Certainly we have like our calendars are similar. But we still do have the struggle of the in between. So, hoping the board will consider signing on to that in June.
Food lunch program is Dolph.
Thank you. So Mrs. Moriarty and I were talking about food service, most recently, and thought it might be good to just provide a little data, for the board, and also follow up from the April 8th meeting when I shared that we were looking at possibly needing to subsidize the program this year. The budget was not coming in where we thought it would, but I'm happy to share that I had met with the vendor a few weeks ago, and they actually agreed to maintain the budget that they had proposed to us, which is really great news. So this year we will not have to subsidize, but unfortunately for next year we will. So we are looking at about a $33,000 subsidy for that food service contract for next year. And later in the meeting, you will see that an end of year encumbrance for consideration for the board would be a proposal for some end of year funds towards the food service subsidy. So that is where that is coming from. I won't run through this. You can read it. It just providing you with the meals served over the last 3 years. It does show that the current year that we're in, we are projected to increase participation, which is great news. Things seem to be going really well with our current vendor. And below that is the meal pricing. So unfortunately, the federal government has not released the paid lunch equity tool, which we do need to use to provide it helps us present the pricing for next year. They haven't released that yet. So we are still kind of in a to be determined stage, and we're going to hold rates at the current rate until we do receive that tool.
Is there still a chance of that being cut off? A
The
better
reimbursement. So I haven't heard yes or no to that. I think we're really in a holding pattern. From a state standpoint, I would say everybody is operating status quo, or business as usual. That's what we keep hearing. So that's how we're going to operate until we hear otherwise. And I'm happy to answer questions if people have them. It was just more of an informational update.
Questions for Ashley? Hearing none. Review project and lending options for boiler replacements and HVAC. Mark, since we aren't voting on this, I think absolutely.
So, we want to share with you the current boiler and HVAC project that the board brought forward to the voters as a bond, well, as a warrant article to bond borrow at $1.5 million. We have had through the project work at this stage, Mr. Swanker has been able to create some savings, which would allow us to potentially add some additional HVAC work to stay within that $1.5 million borrowing. So you have a map, and so you've got
Page 124.
124. So the original part of it is the orange, and the yellow part is what we are proposing to add. The adding is about $137,000, which is the savings we have. So we can build this within the current proposed $1.5 million. If we were to do it as a standalone project, the yellow, we would be looking at about $265,000. So it's an opportunity right now not to go over what we said we were hoping to spend, and to capture some additional HVAC that is going to be less than trying to do it as a standalone project in the future. The reality is our HVAC, we're really looking at improvements. There are some school districts that are coming from where they have problems. we don't have problems, but there is a need for improvement. These particular areas, the yellow, they get very warm. We're at a time period, I would say, and long enough in this field that I can say you used to have a little hot at the end of the year and maybe a little hot at the beginning of the year. Our hots are much longer. And so this will allow to create more conducive learning environments. So that is, I guess, our kind of probably, I think, taking this because it's kind of, the conversation can get more complicated when we start talking about end of year fund balance. But I think the question that I would like to ask the board to consider this evening is, are you receptive to extending, so within that financial footprint that was established of 1.5, extending the scope of work, not the financial, but the scope of work to be able to add these additional rooms?
Savings of $128,000.
If you took, I'm assuming your math is correct.
So you want that?
She checked. She wrote
So we would like that as a motion so that Mr. Swanker can keep things moving forward.
Motion seconded.
Made and seconded. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
So now this is where the conversation gets a little more complicated. So page 125. So we have, and I'll let Ashley jump in a moment, but we have looked at bonding it and a commercial lending. Bonding, you are tied to the schedule. So it'll be 5 years that you're paying. You can't pay off early so that, again, if you can pay debt down, then you don't pay interest longer. Commercial bank, you can pay down early. The bond bank that we have a rate of 3.08%. The commercial bank is at 4.5%. And if you look at the left-hand bond bank one and the middle one, do you want to talk about those, Ashley? What those totals look like?
Sure. So if you were to, so we're still in the application process, so I don't want to give any false, with the.
Right, we have
New
not been
Hampshire-
approved
we
by
haven't
the
been
bond
approved,
bank.
right,
yet.
so
We have been approved by
this is
commercial bank.
Correct, and we do a letter. With the bond bank, New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank at the rate of 3.08 so it's actually, with the bond bank, it's actually over 6 years because year one, you actually only have an interest payment. And so that total is projected to be $1,653,000 total overall. So $153,000 in interest on that 1.5 million. And the commercial bank with an interest rate of 4.5% over 5 years with the 1.5 million, $202,500 in interest, totaling $1,702,500. The difference in the interest between the two would be about $49,500. And your first payment for the municipal bond bank, you would be looking at February of 26, and a commercial loan with a bank, with a local bank would be May 1st of 2026. And the disbursement of funds would vary depending on who we went with and when the application was received and those types of things. So.
And again, the benefit of a commercial bank is you could pay it off early and potentially not have to pay as much in interest. So off to the right, you see it costed out if it was $1.25 million. So I think that may be best if we flipped to page 126. So we have unassigned fund balance that we anticipate for the end of this year. Ashley, do you want to just kind of run people through?
Sure. So this anticipated unassigned fund balance is a snapshot in time, as I like to say. This could change. A lot happens between now and the end of the school year. So even though we're presenting $1.1 million as an unassigned fund balance, this will change. But starting at the top, that unassigned fund balance, that starting unassigned fund balance is the unassigned fund balance from last school year. They're moving down the reserve for prior year encumbrances. Those are 23-24 encumbrances that were carried forward to 24-25 school year. And then that gives you a total beginning of year fund balance. Our anticipated revenues, that number is 32,686,123. Our expenditures for the year, and then our encumbrances for the year. And then we did during the budget process promise to return 250,000 as unassigned fund balance. So that's also taken out, and all of those total together, you have your anticipated unassigned fund balance.
Which we know will change between now and in the end of June, but we're
And
looking
not
at
up.
just, right, it will go down, but it's about $1 million, just, or 1.1 million. So if you go to the,
If I may, I'm sorry, actually, the anticipated revenues, at what point would we say those are no longer anticipated, those are, because we're getting close to the end of the year.
June 30th.
Okay, so
Yeah. We'll close, I mean, our books close on June 30th, but we technically won't really close things out until probably middle of July, until we say anything received after that date would then be received in the next fiscal year.
how much change have we seen in that anticipation
For revenue,
over the course of the year?
so we're only about $100,000 higher than what we had anticipated when we went through the budget process. So it's really,
So
we're
anticipated.
pretty spot on.
Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, like,
Yep,
so we keep saying, hey, expect change,
it's
yes.
anticipated,
but
right?
We expect that to go to zero, probably not, do we expect it to stay exactly at 1.15, whatever, the bottom line, no, we don't expect that.
It's really the
either.
expenditures. It's not really the revenue that we would anticipate to change.
Right.
It's really our expenses.
Okay.
Yeah.
so if you go to page 127. So this is, again, we would be looking for the board to consider making a decision about end of year fund balance in June, but here's some thoughts to present. So, and many of these thoughts came from the budget process. There were things that we took out, hope that maybe there would be fund balance. So furniture area that we, continue to, to honestly reduce during the budget process. And one of our goals is if we could start using fund balance and just try to start rotating out, pieces on kind of a schedule, working with the three principals and the facilities director to say, okay, we have 25,000. What can we do this year? What's the highest priority? Curriculum, if you recall, we basically we zeroed out the budget with the hopes that we could fund it through fund balance. So this helps support professional learning. It helps support time outside of contracted time to be able to do professional learning or to do curriculum work. It's an important part of keeping the instructional wheels of our work going. Facilities, we are proposing that you consider up to $515,000 for that. This is what we are looking at in that area. The curtain in the auditorium it's just aged. And it was not something that we brought into the budget process, but it's really, it's how many years old, Brian?
20.
I was gonna say,
And it's got rips in it that are they're not repairable, and holes, that it's really, it's looking pretty, dismal. We also, $125,000 is what we would suggest for the site work replacement. Again, some of that is continuing to make our campus more accessible, as well as take advantage of the boilers. We'll be digging up the courtyard, because the oil tanks are in the courtyard. And so this is an opportunity to try to capture some spots that quite frankly have an unevenness, and
addresses safety issues.
Yeah, it is. You know, definite tripping hazards. If you recall, during the budget process, we took out some custodial salaries because we were not able to fill those positions. And we said if there was fund balance, we would ask to carry forward for janitorial services and custodian salaries of about 175,000. We need to fill the new tanks for propane. That's about 25 grand. Looking at flooring at Sandwich Central School, the Kappa Gymatorium. The floor there is weathered and needs replacing. We took that out of the budget process, as well as some additional flooring at the middle high. So there are additional facility things that we're hoping to do. There were other facility things that were deferred during the budget process. We have examined that and said, we think that deferment, like one of them is a roof coating that we can wait on and try to address these other issues. Proposing 100,000 towards special education expenses. The reality is we just never know what's going to happen in that area, and having some additional funding to support those unexpected.
Would that be ETF?
No, so this would be just carried forward funds, which we would use before we would ask to use the ETF.
Okay.
And food service, 40,000, which you just heard Ashley speak to. We had put off the football helmet covers during the budget process. Those are $5,000 that do add additional protection, which is, you know, this for their heads. And the reality is we're going into negotiations next year. So some additional funding for services to support that. Legal services makes sense. Athletics Hall of Fame, we did take that out of the budget, but that is, you know, I think that is a community connector of $3,000. Salary and benefits. The salary and benefits we had with the new ILSSA contract, so the support staff contract, had new language in it that if somebody was hired at a higher step than somebody previously, because the previous contract had a cap, like you couldn't hire somebody beyond step 4. So with this new contract, if you hired somebody who was at a higher rate than somebody who had been here previously, with the old language, that you had to make these salary adjustments. So we have had that, and we've had to make substantial adjustments, which were not planned for because we didn't know. And so that's about $34,000. You see, so number 10 is looking at $250,000, which if you were to do what we're proposing, there'd be about $250,000 that you could retain. And retaining means you could bring it into the 26-27 year to offset taxes. So let's just look at the bottom of the page. It talks about retained funds. So there is, there's an RSA that covers retainage. There was a vote that the school district made at some point to not exceed 2.5% to retain. So if you were to look at the amount of the net assessment that we had for 24-25 and took 2.5%, you have almost $800,000. So you could choose to retain $800,000 and move it to the 26-27 school year. And what that would do is offset the 26-27 school year taxes. Sometimes the board has done that when there is a contract to try to kind of offset that additional cost. You may want to, and I think if this would take a little more research, you could also use that $250,000 to reduce how much you borrow for the $1.5 million. So that's a possibility. You could do something else with that $250,000. We also left kind of in yellow. The board had last year wanted to secure some funds for those unexpected competitions. And I believe the board had carried forward $20,000 last year, which was 25. Thank you. $25,000, which is still sitting there. There was not a need to access that this year, but I want to make sure, because I know that was something the board had, you know, you could certainly consider that.
As far as that goes, Mary, I thought part of that was we wanted to come up with a plan on how that would be dispersed.
Yeah.
So there was equity to
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
thing, and I
Yes.
haven't seen that
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the other is, EBSCO, which is, electronic access tool. That, I believe that was funded through the state libraries, which I believe was reduced recently. And so it's a very valuable, it's a research tool. Isn't something that we had,
So it's
planned.
not physical access. It's
Correct. It's a
Access to what the products of the London.
Correct. So, you know, you can research something and get a number of research articles on a topic. So those are some ideas. We put the next box to the right because, we had a conversation earlier with, Mr. Trudell and Mr. Billings about, facilities and as the representatives. And so just, again, you can design this any way you'd like. And you could put $1 million towards facilities. You could do additional $1 million of facilities work. You could say, we're going to use it all to not have to borrow, but then those other things aren't happening. So it ultimately turns out to be a finite amount of money.
Surprising, huh?
You can't spend a dollar twice and, you know,
but this is your recommendation.
this is our
Here's
recommendation on the
Ashley's
left.
recommendation.
Yes, and Mr. Swanker's been part of that in terms of the conversations we've had. The reality, what I would say is right now for facilities to take on greater scope, I don't think there's the bandwidth to do it. So if it was, you know, if there was like a desire to do more facilities like of the HVAC project, the reality is I don't think that that would be something they could accomplish this summer. It would be money you'd have to push forward probably to the following summer.
Questions or comments for Mrs. Moriarty or Ashley or Mr. Swanker, because he joined us.
Mine is to, as I said this afternoon, do as much as you can now. Because the dollar you spend now will be $1.50 2 years down the road. And we know we're gonna need HVAC at all times going forward.
And I think there was a good conversation about potentially like that 250,000. Do you retain it or do you use it to, you know, do something to offset the cost of borrowing money? Probably knowing if you were to retain it and then you're putting it into an account, what might it yield sitting in an account versus what might be the savings with the interest rate. That was one of our conversations that we would need a little time to figure that out between now and June to get me that information.
Okay, so we'll take this up again in June.
June meeting will start at 9 in the morning.
So I guess we've rolled into fund balance.
That was fun balance. Fun balance.
That was a smooth transition.
We try.
Just to circle back though to page 125, so that bar column to the right provides you just kind of a snapshot of what putting some fund balance towards this would look like financially. Just a point. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up. We have landscaping, 3-year contract. Mrs. Moriarty and Mr. Swanker.
So Mr. Swanker has presented a memo with a recommendation for turnkey construction, and they have been our provider and doing a good job.
Any questions?
Was Stevens just a competitor for that business?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Those were just different
Yep.
requests for bids.
That is a significant difference.
Yes. 50, 60.
45 to 60, yeah, it's another. better than
Over
50%.
3 years.
Yeah.
All right, so are there any questions for Mr. Swanker or Mrs. Moriarty on this? Not, I would entertain a motion to approve Mr. Swanker's recommendation. Moved by
Motion.
Seconded by Mr. Billings. Well, we'll wait for. Well, we have 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Nomination.
You've had an opportunity in non-public. If there's any questions, that would probably go back to non-public.
I don't, if somebody wanted to make a,
Motion?
thank you. That included the part about pending, what do you call it?
Release from current
Release.
contract.
Release from current contract.
I'll make that motion.
There's a second. Seconded by Nancy. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And general assurances.
So, general assurances, I had sent them out earlier to the board. They're pretty deep. I have reviewed them. I have no concerns relative to them. I know that the New Hampshire School Boards Association sent something out about maybe people would want to delay signing them. I don't see a need to do that. And I think it helps us be in a good position for meeting deadlines so that we can be eligible to receive federal funds.
Do you need a motion on that?
We do.
I would make the motion to approve the school board chair and superintendent signing fiscal year 2026 general assurances as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Any other questions from Mrs. Moriarty? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mary. Light Up Lakers campaign.
Yes, so you have their total in donations and pledges is $134,964.87. Molten Farms has made a generous donation of $1,000 for a banner. And recently, the Alfred Quimby Trust has pledged $15,000.
Total to raise is
Is about 370, 350. Looking at Mr. Swanker, 370. I think it's about.
I thought it was
75.
335.
Maybe it's okay.
Regardless, they're about well over a third of the way there. Is there a motion to approve the donations with gratitude?
Motion made.
motion seconded.
Made, seconded. Other questions? Hearing none, all those say aye who approve.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Oh, and then we have other donations. Katie to the Interlakes Middle High School for getting to Y New Hampshire program in the amount of $2,000. Interlakes PTO in the amount of $1,000 to be used to pay part of the third grade field trip, not tip, the trip to Castle in the Clouds.
Motion to accept those donations.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Might be
Opposed?
just,
Very good.
the getting to why is students working to really understand what the results of the youth risk behavior survey are saying. So it's a great opportunity to have students participate in that.
Excellent. Next up, general operating expenses. Mrs. Dahl.
Thank you. On page 131 of your packet is manifest 3024, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions from Ms. Dahl? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the manifest? Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Siobhan. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Next up, enrollment report. Mrs. Moriarty.
We are maintaining our enrollment. We are up 2 students. If I remember correctly, we are up 2 students from where we were last month.
It just occurred to me, is the color coding thing happening, the orange and the blue and the yellow? Did we lose something?
So, color coding. So the kind of the peach color is kind of, I'm sorry, 135.
Mark.
135. Thank you.
So that's looking at a K to by school or by K to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 12, 7, 12, and then blue is K to 12, and then additionally blue and then yellow. I guess the coding is kind of all over the map.
Okay, right.
So I think it was just somebody with the highlighting years ago.
Having fun. They learned to get highlight cells.
Thank you very much. Current year staffing update and hiring 25-26 update.
So you have in your on page 136 where we currently are relative to current hiring for the current school year. Pretty much we are the same. For next school year, we do have continue to have the speech language pathologist position open. We do have, we'll have backup plans with that, but that is a position we continue to have, and we do have a special education teacher at ILES.
Great.
And we have paraeducator openings. Tomorrow, contracts go out for paraeducators. They're due back May 31st, so that gives us also an opportunity to see where we will be for next year.
Great. Want to talk about this?
And then we have administrative opening. We have a dean of students and operations. Our hope is to go through the hiring process we started it on the 10th of May advertising, and our hope is we might be in a position to bring a nomination to the school board on June 10th. We will have a hiring committee. Mr. Billings, Mr. Porter Zuckerman, and Mrs. Starmer have said they would help with that. And Dr. Downing will be working to get staff and students involved and parents. I will say this, it's a tough time of year. There are a lot of administrative positions that are open. This may be a challenge to fill. So, we're hopeful. We are, you've put out an ad, which you have on page 138 and 139, you have parts of that. So we will continue to work trying to hire someone. And, if we don't feel like we are, positioned to have the right pool, we will then, cross that bridge when we get there.
Are there any internal possibilities?
I think, that's always, sometimes, what I will say that always surprises me is sometimes people, see an opening and maybe it's not somebody that we realize was interested in that. We don't have anybody at this point saying that, but that it's still early. And, I think
you would like to nudge.
I think I think there might be a poker face over there so that we don't put anybody on the
Kind of an
spot.
unfair question.
It is an unfair question, but I meant.
I think there are
just
people with
because I
lots of
know they're-
potential. There are
Yeah.
people with lots of
Right,
potential.
right.
I think it's a hard job. So,
It is a hard job.
yeah, but it's an
Hardest,
important
I
one,
think,
really
but-
important one. And, so again, we hope June 10th to bring something to you.
Great. Year-to-date financial report, Ms. Dollo.
I'm happy to report on the last page of your agenda, on page 140, is your year-to-date financial report. Again, you kind of saw that fund balance with the end of year fund balance. So right now we have $1,259,268 available. And again, I do anticipate that number to change as we present a June number to you. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions for Ashley? Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
With that, it is now 7:15. I'm going to take one last call for any public comment for anybody here in attendance. Not even the pocket dining? Mr. Parsons, do we have anybody online?
Sir.
I am closing public comment at 7:16. Upcoming meetings on Tuesday, May 20th, we have a SAU #2 board meeting, which will be at Ashland Elementary School. That's the one up on the hill, right?
Yes.
At the actual school, not the
Yes.
old school.
No, correct.
Yeah, okay. And then Tuesday, June 10th will be our last school board meeting of the season as we take July off. Everybody except the strategic planning committee. And then, as Caleb mentioned earlier, I believe, did a nice job with those announcements. June 14th is graduation, which hopefully folks can attend. Is there any other business to come before the board?
I'm here.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Siobhan, seconded by Mark. Her hand was quicker than lightning.
She's quick.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your game tonight.
I hope you do that.
Printer.
Charlie.